What's up guys, DD Man Killer here. So today I'm going to be going over one of my builds I've been using on the Puppeteer lately that I found to be quite effective in many of my games on here. So far I have not seen a lot of struggle using this build, and I have had a lot of people asking me to make a video going about this build and explaining what makes it so strong and so good. So let's get right into it, and we're going to start out with the skill tree. So now that we're at the skill tree, we're going to look at all the abilities they use and figure out why this build is so effective. When I first started this game, I thought Puppeteer was a very bad killer and I couldn't find a way to make him viable. So I hopped on some Survivor, played some Survivor, and then I started to realize one of the strong points of Puppeteer was his elite units. They were very difficult to kill, they had reduced damage to range, and they were all on very effective. So I decided to make a build surrounding that. So to start out, let's go with Eligos and his special perks. So units you possess have more health, deal more damage, and their attacks increase fear in their targets. So a nice little buff, 10% damage, 40% health, 90-second cooldown. And that goes up and up the more you level them up to an extra 5% health and damage, an extra 5% health and damage, and then when you max them out level 45, another 5% health and damage. I believe it goes by 5, 15, 25, 45. I may be incorrect about that. I don't remember the exact levels. But yeah, you level these, you increase these the more you level up the Eligos. So let's go over the first ability. The first one first skill tree perk you want to max out is Shock and Awe. Increase the damage radius of the Thunderstruck ability. This is one of the abilities of the Demi Eligos elite unit. So what this does, Thunderstruck, it marks the ground beneath each nearby survivor. If they don't move, they're hit by a lightning strike. So in my experience, even if they're slightly walking around, it'll still hit them. The only time it'll really miss them is if you try to cast Thunderstruck while they are running or they're dodging. It is very easy to dodge if you know how to do it at the right time. The second ability of the elite unit is Duplicity. So Demi Eligos will conjure a drone, a clone of himself, with identical damage dealing ability but very low health. So this clone can basically also cast Thunderstruck, but it cannot split itself as well. Otherwise, you would have a million clones. You could just keep multiplying and multiplying. And one little tip, if you die, if the unit that creates these clones, if you're possessing unit and you call in a bunch of clones as the elite unit, if you die, all your clones will also die as well. So let's get back to the skill tree. So the first one increases the damage radius of Thunderstruck ability. That is a very good base upgrade to go off of, and it's in the very beginning of the skill tree because this makes the radius larger and it's a little bit harder for them to walk out of. They have to basically run out of it or dodge out of it. So this really has a better chance of hitting people and hitting multiple survivors at once. The second one you want to put 3 points into is High Voltage. Increase the amount of damage inflicted by the Thunderstruck ability. It's not a lot, but an extra 10% damage is nice. And then there's also damage increases later on in this tree, and I'll get into. This is another point I put into just because I needed to put points into something. You don't necessarily have to put into Power Surge, but I just went into it so I could further into the skill tree. Increase respawn speed of Infernal Orbs. I think that's pretty good, 20% for 2 points. One thing with this boss is, unlike the Warrior and the Necromancer, he does not have any early on infernal energy regeneration. With Warrior and Necromancer, you could put 3 points into their infernal energy in a match and have constant trickle of energy regeneration. Eligos does not get that. You have to put in 5 points, and I forgot the exact level you need that, but it's definitely at a higher threat level. And as we all know, energy regeneration is really good early game. Come late game, you're going to be fighting at a lot of objectives, getting a lot of energy back. So it's a very hard energy management early game. So this is something that helps out a lot in certain areas that gets tight. This is another point I put into Infernal Revenue. You don't have to, but I needed to put a point in here to further the skill tree, because you have to put a certain amount of points in to get further into the skill tree. Tenacious Demon Dash. I like this one quite a lot. Reduces the cooldown to Tenacious, my bad, 90 seconds. This allows you to increase the fear in the survivors, put a little more pressure on them, and every time you hit survivors with your Demon Dash, it gives you some infernal energy back. and it really helps with your energy management as Eligos. I put 1 point into increase the amount of fear that survivors receive from the demonic dash. 50%, 50 extra fear. I'm sorry, not 50%, 50 extra fear. Not a bad one, but I just put 1 point into there. Let's go down here. This is another area I decided to put 2 points into because it seemed like the best area to put points into. You don't have to put them into Berserker Blowout, but increases the blast radius of the Deadites Berserker self-destructibility for the basic units. Up into the tree, we have Insane Clone Posse. Increase the damage inflicted by your clones. 3 points for 15%. It is kind of nice because one thing about Puppeteer, he is based on possessions. And with this build, I'm going to show you later on, you can have quite a few clones up if you have a good sustain, and you can keep spawning them in, and then you have a little mini army of clones to damage them, and that little 15% damage increase helps out a lot. Gates of Hell. Reduce the cooldown period between placing the portals of Elite, 15% cooldown reduction. If you're going to be basing a build off of Elite or basic units, you want to make sure that you have a cooldown on that portal, because having that reduced cooldown of your most leveled up units is going to be very good to apply pressure. 2 points into increasing the maximum health by elites by 15%. This is very good, makes them a bit tankier, harder to kill. Increase the balance bar of elite units, the balance bar length, by 15%. This is probably one of the most important ones you need to level up in this build. For this build, for elite units, they are very, very vulnerable to balance bar damage. And I will tell you why. So elite units cannot be knockbacked unless their balance bar is fully depleted. They are resistant to damage from ranged weapons. Now most of the time, you're going to be hit by melee damage. And melee damage, even if it's a blunt weapon, or if they're spec'd into balance bar damage, is going to break your balance bar and stun you and prevent you from using abilities. That's one nice thing about this unit, is the resistance to ranged weapons. However, they can also spec into ranged weapon balance bar damage. Even though it may not do a lot of damage to you physically, it will knock your balance bar out. So balance bar is one of the biggest counters to this build. So let's go further on. Scared to Death. Evil units' melee attacks increase survivors' fear. This is very, 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 very nice. 2 fear per hit. Yourself and any other units hitting survivors increases their fear. And if it increases their fear, you get more threat level. You get more threat level, you can upgrade your units in game. You become stronger, and also gives you the chance to possess them. Move on to Heavy Damage Elite. Increased damage dealt by elite units. An extra 10% is very, very nice. An extra 10% for all your elite units, the ones you're possessing, even for your elite units' abilities. So this is a very, very good ability to have. Let's move on down to here. Boss. This is another one I found to be very good. Boss units are more resistance to balance bar damage. 35%. That's a pretty good stat. Eligos is a very squishy, one of the squishiest bosses out of the 3, in my opinion. But he does output a lot of damage. And having that balance bar resistance is pretty good. 1 point to health raiser basic. I don't bother upgrading the health of basic units, so I just put 1 point to there. So this ability, this skill tree upgrade, Puppet Master Invigorating Possession. When your possessed evil unit hits a survivor, you gain infernal energy. Now this is one of the best parts about what makes this build so good. This gives you amazing sustain as Puppeteer, and I mean absolutely amazing sustain. Every time you hit a survivor with melee, any ability, you're thunderstruck, you gain energy back. And this will help allow you to basically, you could permanently possess a single unit the entire game with this, as long as you're doing continuous damage. And I have done it for well over 5-10 minutes before with 1 unit. Puppet Master Elite, increase the maximum health gain and damage dealt by possessed elite units. So health and damage increased by 10% for elite units, and this also increases the damage by 10%, and this increases the maximum health by 15%. That's 25% extra health and 20% extra damage. That is very, very good. That is something I recommend you run. Kandarian Fury. The longer you spend possessing unit, the more damage they can inflict. Extra damage per second, 3%. So every second you are possessing an elite unit, a basic unit, any unit basically, you are constantly increasing damage by 3% if you have this maxed out. This is not unlimited. I possessed units for 10 minutes straight before, and I didn't one-shot everyone, so there is a cap, and from what I've been told, everyone says it caps out at 15%. But it is pretty nice if you add on that 15% to the 20% in damage here, so that's another 35% extra damage. And if you add these in as well, 35% with these 3 skill tree perks. So with this one, that's 45% damage, 50% damage, 55% damage, 60% damage. So you're doing 60% damage if you're using the Puppet Master, Power Possess ability. And this is a very good ability you want to use. All of this is really good only if you use the Puppet Master Possess ability. This reduces the cooldown of all of his abilities, makes your unit a lot tankier, super hard to kill, and forces them to get close to you. What this cooldown, the cooldown with the elite unit when you're using this ability is about, I think, 7 seconds for the Thunderstruck ability, and that allows you to constantly spam it over and over and over and over and over and over, making you a huge threat, and they need to force themselves to take you out and put themselves out of position. One thing I like about using this build is you've noticed a lot of times you may possess a unit, all the survivors turn around and they immediately begin rushing you and hitting you with melee weapons. This punishes them greatly when they try doing that. The more people that are on you, the more damage it does. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you a video, show you some gameplay of me playing Puppeteer and seeing what makes this build so good. So here's some gameplay footage of me fighting some survivors. So one of the first things I want to go over is talking about what you upgrade first using this build. When you're in a game, the first thing you want to do is increase your threat level, gain a lot of points, causes survivors to gain more fear. The more fear they gain, the faster your threat level goes up, yada yada yada, you get more stronger, right? So let's go over what you should put your points into first. So the first thing you want to put your points into is the traps. 3 points into traps is one of the first things you want to do. The reason being is, if you look on the bottom, it's 167 points to summon an elite unit. If you can spawn an elite unit from a trap for only 25 energy, that is insanely good and very cost efficient, and you can possess that unit. After that, you want to work into putting all your points into possession, increasing the health and damage of your elite unit from the health and damage you already have. So traps, possession, and the rest into the elite unit portal. You want to get your elite units as strong as possible. And if you do all these buffs in game, you max them all out, your elite unit is going to have well over 100 to 50% increased health and damage, which is insane. So here I spawn an elite unit, I immediately possess them using my unique ability, and I start spamming the lightning strike ability. I start cloning myself, dropping some clones, and as you can see, I'm hitting them through this rock here. You do not need line of sight to hit this ability. That's one of the nice things about it. You can hit it from anywhere, behind any object, as long as you're within range. And as you see right here, they start rushing me, and this is where my ability comes in really clutch. I start doing lots of damage to them right there. And if you notice in the bottom left, let's rewind it real quick. In the bottom left, if you notice the Cheryl's health, it goes from almost maxed out to nothing. And you're saying, that's a lot of damage being done. But the reason why is, as you can see, damage stacks with the lightning strike ability. It's not unique. So if you have 4 people standing on top of each other, they're not going to just get hit once. They're going to be hit by all 4 lightning strikes, because it calls it upon each person, and they'll get dealt quadruple the damage. So this build really hard punishes people that like to rush you and spam melee on you. It punishes them hard for that. This is one of the best things I like about this build. It forces people to split up and learn how to dodge a lot better. So one of the biggest counters to this build is balance bar damage and dodging. Now obviously, if people know how to dodge your Thunderstrike ability, it makes it pretty hard to hit them with and pretty useless. And you'll run to people like that. And in that situation, you kind of have to resort to using other units, your boss unit, or melee attacks to try to bring them down. But if people don't know how to dodge your Thunder Strike, it's extremely, extremely strong, and you will wipe people extremely quickly with it. One thing I like to do is when I down someone, I like to camp their body and bait them out with the Thunder Strike ability. Because when you call in Thunder Strike, it also calls it in on the people who are downed as well. So you're calling in one person on the guy rezzing and one on the down person. So that's 2 strikes coming in doing double damage to whoever's picking them up. So right here, I spawn in a house and I just start hitting them through the walls using my abilities over and over and over. And this is a very good strat to do because it can confuse survivors and they may not be able to find you. So here I end up downing the Cheryl, and I end up just keep splitting myself and keep spamming the lightning. So here again, as he's picking him up, I cast the lightning. I end up downing the guy picking him up, the Ash, and it insta-kills her. So that's what I've noticed. When you do a lot of damage, when you down somebody who's being picked up, it insta-kills them. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be, but I've noticed that to be very common when doing this. It's a very, very strong strat that I'm using, zapping people through the walls, dealing a lot of damage. I don't know if they still know I'm in here. I think they're still confused. Very, 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 very strong mechanic, and I've been using it quite a while. It has given me nothing but wins all across the board. I do think this character will get some changes, will get some nerfs here and there along the line. I don't think it's very OP. Once people know how to properly dodge this ability and focus you down, it's not as strong as it seems. But against the average player, it is very, very strong and very, very, very useful. So now, yeah, you can use the boss Eligos during the battle, but I recommend not really spawning him in until after you've downed 1 or 2 people, and then spawn in the boss unit to sort of gatekeep the downed people or finish off the rest. Because while this guy is pretty good, the elite unit with his lightning spam and damage, he's still not as strong as Eligos is with his massive AoE stun and the fact that he can go invisible and just grab people, and basically is a very hard boss to kill. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build. If you want to check out my live gameplay, twitch.tv/GDMainKiller, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys live next time.